Project plans often fail not because project managers lack skill, but because they're using the wrong map for the wrong terrain. Imagine trying to apply a carefully detailed roadmap in the middle of a storm. It won't help you find shelter. In project management, some environments are complex, where patterns emerge over time and experimentation guides the way. Others are chaotic, where there are no patterns and immediate decisive action is the only option. Knowing the difference between the two, and planning accordingly, is the line between success and collapse. Project managers often face situations where traditional, predictive planning models collapse. Two of the most challenging domains in the Cynefin Framework are the complex and chaotic environments. Both share uncertainty, unpredictability, and ambiguity, yet they require very different planning mindsets and tools. Misunderstanding which domain you're in can result in wasted effort or even project failure. Planning in complex environments. A complex environment is one where cause and effect relationships exist but cannot be clearly seen in advance. Patterns are only visible after they emerge. In such conditions, project managers cannot simply define all steps up front. Instead, they must experiment, sense outcomes, and adapt continuously. Planning here is about exploration and emergence. Rather than producing a detailed, fixed blueprint, managers create a flexible roadmap that accommodates learning. Teams might set high-level goals but rely on iterative cycles, safe-to-fail experiments, and prototypes to test assumptions. For example, in software development, instead of writing a full requirement specification, the team might develop a minimal feature set, release it, and observe user reactions before refining the next step. In this context, the planning process is inherently collaborative. Teams, stakeholders, and end users actively shape the project direction through feedback loops. The project manager's role is less about controlling every detail and more about enabling structured learning. Plans emphasize adaptability, options, and resilience rather than prediction. The time horizon in complex planning tends to be medium-term. You can set a vision or direction, but only the immediate next steps are defined in detail. Everything else remains adjustable. Tools such as prototyping, backlog refinement, system mapping, and scenario exploration become essential, helping the team probe the environment and learn what works. How to plan under complexity. Planning in a complex environment requires a fundamentally different mindset than traditional predictive project planning. Unlike chaos, where decisive action stabilizes the situation first, complexity demands sense-making, probing, and adaptive iteration. Patterns exist, but they can only be recognized retrospectively. This means planning isn't about predicting the future with certainty, but about creating safe-to-fail experiments that allow the right path to reveal itself over time. Key principles for planning in complexity: embrace iteration instead of prediction, use short planning cycles with continuous reassessment. Agile methodologies like Scrum or Kanban work well, but the mindset is more important than the method. Assume your first plan is only a hypothesis. Probe, sense, respond approach. Start by launching multiple small, low-risk initiatives, safe-to-fail probes. Observe which ones generate positive outcomes and amplify them. Reduce or stop the ones that aren't working, quickly and without blame. Stakeholder county creation. Involve diverse perspectives early in the planning process. Complexity often hides in interdependencies and social dynamics, so the wisdom of the group is more powerful than the perspective of a single planner. Build feedback loops. Set mechanisms to continuously gather insights, metrics, customer feedback, stakeholder input. Make the plan a living system that adapts based on what is learned. Plan for options, not outcomes. Instead of betting everything on one detailed roadmap, design your plan to keep multiple pathways open. Complexity thrives on emergence, so optionality reduces risk. Encourage learning culture. Teams must be willing to test, fail, and adapt. The role of the project manager is to enable curiosity and collective intelligence rather than to enforce rigid control. Example: planning in a complex environment. Consider a smart city initiative. When a city launches a project to integrate IoT devices for traffic management, energy optimization, and citizen services, the interdependencies are massive and outcomes unpredictable. A rigid, 5-year Gantt chart would collapse as soon as new technologies, regulations, or citizen behaviors shifted. Instead, complexity planning means running pilot projects, e.g., testing smart traffic lights in one district, learning from real-world feedback, and scaling gradually. The plan is adaptive, focusing on direction and learning rather than on predicting every step in advance. Planning in chaotic environments. A chaotic environment, in contrast, is one where no patterns can be identified and cause and effect is impossible to discern, at least in the moment. The environment is turbulent, unstable, and often dangerous if left unmanaged. Examples include a sudden financial crisis, a cyber attack, or a natural disaster disrupting operations. Here, planning cannot wait for analysis or experimentation. The first priority is to stabilize the situation quickly. This requires immediate action, often top-down and directive, to create at least a minimal degree of order. In chaotic conditions, the planning process becomes crisis-driven and short-term focused. The project manager's role here is decisive and commanding. Rather than facilitating broad collaboration, they must cut through the noise and establish clarity. Teams need clear instructions, rapid communication, and very short planning cycles, sometimes hourly rather than daily or weekly. Planning focuses on survival essentials, restoring critical functions, protecting stakeholders, and preventing further damage. Once stability is achieved, planning can gradually shift toward a more complex style, where experimentation and collaborative problem-solving are reintroduced. In practice, planning in chaos often uses checklists, rapid response protocols, and contingency playbooks. War rooms or crisis command centers may be set up to centralize decisions. Unlike complex environments, where the emphasis is on options and flexibility, chaotic planning is about containment and recovery. How to plan under chaos. 1. Stabilize before you strategize in chaos. Long-term strategies are irrelevant until immediate danger is contained. Identify the most urgent threats. What will cause collapse if not addressed right now? Take decisive, short-term actions to stop the bleeding. Think in terms of hours or days, not weeks or months. Pushpin example. During a cyber attack, the first plan is not about redesigning security architecture. It's about disconnecting compromised systems and restoring basic operations. 2. Establish a command center. Chaos thrives on confusion, so communication must be centralized. Set up a clear chain of command. Use a war room, physical or virtual, where information and decisions flow quickly. Reduce noise by defining who makes which decisions. Pushpin example. During a natural disaster response, emergency agencies create an incident command center to align hospitals, fire departments, and logistics in real time. 3. Prioritize ruthlessly. Not everything can be saved or solved in chaos. Define must-haves versus nice-to-haves. Focus resources on actions that stabilize core systems. Use the 80-20 principle. What 20% of actions will solve 80% of the crisis? Pushpin example. In a manufacturing plant breakdown, the priority may be to restore one critical production line instead of all lines at once. 4. Plan in micro cycles. Forget long Gantt charts. Chaos requires ultra-short planning loops. Break work into small, actionable steps, measured in hours or a single day. Review progress constantly and adapt immediately. Use simple visual tools like Kanban boards or even a whiteboard checklist. Pushpin example. During the first days of COVID-19 lockdowns, many organizations worked on daily action plans, adjusting every morning based on new government rules. 5. Build contingency pathways. Even in chaos, you can plan for multiple scenarios. Ask, if X happens, what will we do? If Y happens, how do we pivot? Create fallback options in case first attempts fail. Keep solutions simple and executable with available resources. Pushpin example. A retail company facing supply chain disruption might plan. If local warehouses are blocked, right-pointing arrow reroute deliveries through regional hubs. If international shipping fails, right-pointing arrow switch to local suppliers. 6. Use checklists for critical actions under pressure. Humans forget basics. Create non-negotiable checklists for safety, compliance, and communication. Ensure the team knows what cannot be skipped, no matter the chaos. Pushpin example. Airlines use emergency checklists during in-flight crises to ensure pilots don't miss essential steps while under stress. 7. Communicate frequently and simply. Chaos creates uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds fear. Share updates often, even if you don't have all the answers. Keep instructions short, clear, and actionable. Use one communication channel as the official source of truth. Pushpin example. In crisis management, daily or even hourly updates prevent rumors and align teams on the next immediate step. 8. Transition out of chaos. Chaos should never be permanent. The goal of chaotic planning is to move the project into a complex but manageable state. Once stability is reached, shift toward experimentation and adaptive learning. Replace directive crisis planning with collaborative exploration. Pushpin example. After a sudden IT outage is fixed, the planning shifts from rapid patching to long-term resilience testing and architecture redesign. Key takeaway. Planning under chaos is not about predicting the future, it's about buying time, stabilizing the present, and creating enough order to move forward. Think of it as creating a breathing space so the project can survive today and adapt tomorrow. Transition from chaos to complexity. One of the most important lessons from Cynefin is that chaos should be temporary. A project cannot be managed in perpetual chaos, it would exhaust the team and erode resources. The role of planning in chaos is therefore to move the project out of chaos and into a manageable domain. This transition typically follows 3 steps. Act decisively to stabilize. Rapid actions prevent total breakdown. Sense the new patterns. Once the immediate crisis is under control, identify what has changed. Shift to complex planning. Replace crisis response with experimentation, feedback loops, and adaptive learning. For example, after a sudden cyber attack, the immediate plan might focus on disconnecting systems, isolating threats, and restoring backups. Once stability is regained, planning evolves into complex mode, experimenting with new security protocols, running controlled tests, and adapting practices based on emerging risks. Key insights for project managers. In complex environments, planning is about learning through safe-to-fail experiments, keeping flexibility, and involving stakeholders in shaping the journey. In chaotic environments, planning is about rapid, directive action to restore stability, with very short horizons and clear priorities. A critical project management skill is knowing when to switch modes. Overanalyzing in chaos wastes precious time. Conversely, being overly directive in complexity stifles learning and innovation. Real-life project case. The COVID-19 response. The chaotic phase, rapid global disruption. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in early 2020, organizations worldwide were suddenly thrown into chaos. Offices closed overnight, supply chains collapsed, and business continuity was at risk. For project managers, planning at this stage had nothing to do with forecasts or detailed schedules. Instead, the focus was immediate survival. Companies rushed to deploy remote work infrastructure within days. Healthcare systems scrambled to increase hospital capacity and secure protective equipment. Governments imposed rapid lockdowns to stabilize public safety. Here, the environment was chaotic. No patterns, no precedents, and high stakes. Planning took the form of command centers, checklists, and rapid response playbooks. Decisions had to be made hourly, often with incomplete data. The objective was not optimization, but stabilization. Transition to the complex phase. Emerging patterns. Once the initial chaos was contained, the situation gradually shifted into a complex environment. Cause and effect relationships began to surface, but only through observation and experimentation. For example, organizations tested different remote work models, learning which were sustainable. Vaccine developers ran safe-to-fail experiments through clinical trials, gathering insights before scaling. Schools explored hybrid teaching approaches, adjusting based on student and teacher feedback. Here, planning became exploratory and adaptive. Project managers emphasized short cycles, pilot programs, and feedback loops. The focus was no longer on immediate survival, but on learning and adapting to new realities. Lessons from the case in chaos. Planning is about acting fast to create stability. Long-term strategies are irrelevant until immediate risks are contained. In complexity, planning is about experimenting and adapting. Success depends on observation, feedback, and flexibility. Project managers must be skilled at recognizing the shift, knowing when chaos stabilizes enough to transition into complex planning. Right finger. This COVID-19 example shows how the same global crisis required chaotic planning first, rapid lockdowns, emergency healthcare, instant remote work, and then complex planning, long-term adaptation, hybrid work, vaccine development. Conclusion. Planning in complex and chaotic environments requires a shift from traditional, predictive thinking towards situational planning. Complex environments demand exploration, experimentation, and adaptability, while chaotic environments demand immediate containment, decisive leadership, and crisis management. Ultimately, effective planning is not about choosing one model over the other but about diagnosing the environment correctly and applying the right planning mindset at the right time.